Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual Ossining Public Library in New York. We're so happy to have you here from all over. This is awesome. I'm Diana Lennon, head of adult services, and we've been, Ashley, how many years? Like 2 years at least?
No,
We've
it's been like
been
three.
three, I think.
Almost,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like the end of the year,
The
and
virtual ones, yeah.
yeah. So it's been a thrill to have Ashley here to cook for us in her tiny kitchen. And many people are, obviously welcome to cook along or just watch or make sure you check out our LibGuide at our website, austininglibrary.org, digital library and LibGuides to see past classes. And we used to do a cookbook discussion too. So you can check that all out on our website. But let me hand it over to Ashley. You're going to talk about next year.
Yeah, which I can't. I cannot,
yeah.
But yes.
We're going to talk about next year, and I hope all of you can join us.
Awesome.
All right.
So I'm going to spotlight my overhead, and we're going to not say goodbye to Diana, but we're not going to make her be one of the big squares right now. Hi, everybody. If you're new and you haven't joined me before, my name is Ashley, and I have a website, Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen. And this is like... There's not much as a refrigerator over here. That's really the size of my kitchen here in Ossining, New York. And I've been doing these virtual classes with the Ossining Library for a couple of years now. It's a lot of fun. We do a wide variety of recipes. And this is a fun one because these are like one of my favorites for holiday cookie exchanges. My Italian in-laws love them like so much. And so it gave me Italian like credibility, even though I'm not. So when we do these classes, I find something that works within the span of about an hour. This one, full disclosure, might be a little tricky because the cookies really should be cool before you glaze them, but I'm going to glaze them a little bit. I'm going to glaze them while they're still a little warm. We'll see. It'll be fine. I like to, put you at ease in the kitchen and not have you be stressed out about things. So if you want to wait a little longer than I do to start glazing, good idea. So if you want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 if you're baking along. Whoa, no. 350. Sorry, my microwave is also an oven, and it sometimes likes to act up. I turn the turntable off on it. We're going to get 2 baking sheets ready with either silicone baking mats or parchment paper if you have it. And this recipe makes about 7 dozen, depending on the size of scoop that you use. So it makes a lot. You can freeze them. Oh, and feel free, if you have any questions, even if you're not baking along, feel free to unmute yourself or post in the chat. Very laid back classes. We're not trying to stress anybody out while they're cooking. And I'm happy to help if you have questions. I want you to be comfortable making these. So yeah, they freeze really well. They freeze best uniced. So let them cool completely and you can pop them in the freezer. You can freeze the dough also, or like freeze balls of dough, which works out. So you have options if you don't want 7 dozen cookies today, but just get your baking sheets ready and somewhere nearby for when we start dishing it out. So either if you have a stand mixer, this is the debut of my stand mixer on one of these classes. So I had to make sure it could clear the camera. And if you're watching the replay, I'm sorry, you don't get the overhead view. You just get this one, but I'll try to show it for both. If you don't have a stand mixer, just a large bowl and an electric hand mixer, because we're going to be creaming some sugar and butter. So into the bowl. If I talk too fast or too slow, feel free to tell me, slow down, or can you repeat that? I don't know that anybody's ever told me I talk too slow. I try to keep it relatively in check for classes. Like I was late to watching the Gilmore Girls. I watched it just a couple years ago for the first time, and I was like, my people, they talk very fast. So, all right, 2 cups of white sugar into the bowl. And I think Diana mentioned this before, but I do a class with this library for this particular program once a month. Usually I take a little bit off in the summer from the classes just because my kitchen, it gets very hot. The air conditioning doesn't really reach. So I think July and August, usually we take a break, but we have the next 3 months planned with our recipes, but we're always open to suggestions, what types of things you'd like to make. Some things aren't very conducive to a 1-hour class, but many things are, or we can do something like kind of similar. So always happy to have feedback. You can either email Diana or message me, whatever you'd like to do. So we've got the 2 cups of sugar in there. I have a motion detector sink. That's why that came on. We're gonna add a cup of softened unsalted butter. And if you're baking along, is your butter softened already? Okay, good. If it's not, there are some tricks. You can put it in the microwave on like a low, like 50% power, just a little bit to help thaw it. I've seen people do this thing where they take a big glass, fill it with hot water, dump the hot water out, take their stick of butter upright on the counter and place the emptied but warmed glass over it for a few minutes. That seems to help. If you ever need to soften it quick. I know somebody online who sticks the butter in the like waistband of their pants or their belt and just walks around with it wrapped. You don't want to have it not be wrapped. So 1 cup is 2 sticks, or 8. 1 stick is 8 tablespoons. We're doing 2 sticks, 1 cup. Ooh. Right in with the sugar.
Ashley,
And
did
yeah,
you
go ahead.
say salted or unsalted butter?
Unsalted. I
unsalted?
usually use unsalted butter in baking because you can always
baking,
add some. Yeah. Were you saying neat trick about the in your pants or the? So we're gonna start it on low, and then we're gonna raise it to high. Can you hear me all right over the sound of the motor? Okay, good. So starting it on low, and I realize this angle is not great right now, but I'll raise it up later. Then we're gonna increase it to high or medium high, and it needs to beat for like 5 minutes. So I will do other things while this works. I have mine on like, do I want it on high? Yeah, I'm gonna put it on 8 out of 10. And then Alexa, she can't hear me. All right, she can't hear me over this. Alexa, set a timer for 4.5 minutes.
4 minutes and 30 seconds.
All right. So I'll stop it periodically and scrape down the edges because we want to make sure. A lot of times there's uncombined sugar on the very bottom. So while we're doing that, if you have a container of ricotta that's got this really annoying but important plastic bit on top, I can never peel them off. So I'm going to use a knife to get at it. I honestly have never, my Alexa heard you. Oh, good. So I usually just take like a paring knife and go kind of in around the edge. And then you can kind of, to get the plastic off easily. That way it's ready. I like using whole milk ricotta. You can use the reduced fat stuff. It just might not be quite as good. And I mean, I don't know. Personally, if I'm having like cookies with a ton of butter and sugar, I don't think a little extra fat in the ricotta makes a big difference. So I'm just gonna turn this off for a second and lift it up and just use my spatula. And I'll take this out so you can see the overhead view to kind of scrape in here. And then let it keep going. That's funny about, we say her name, sometimes we just say Alexa with my son. I have a private cooking class student or client that I do classes with a couple times a month, and I'll set one timer. So I'd be like, tell her set a ricotta timer for 5 minutes. And then I'll say, okay, set Maureen's ricotta timer. So when she gets hers in, that way we know whose timer is up and we don't have to be at the exact same rate. But yeah. So that's still going. One note, if you have a cookie scoop, I'm using a number 50, and the way you know the number, when you press on the handle, there's this little swipey piece. And if you look closely, I don't know if you can see it on here, there's a number engraved on the swipey. That's the technical name, is the swipey piece. So this is 50. And they have different equivalents to different measurements. You can find it online. But I find 50 the most handy for cookies usually. I did a class last week for some peppermint hot chocolate cookies, and I used the same scoop. I think it's a good size. Like if you were only to get one, this is the size I would get. I did not add the ricotta, just creaming the butter and the sugar. That's a funny typo. Autocorrect will do that to you. We're gonna be adding, let's see. Once this is done, we're gonna add the ricotta, and we're gonna do a whole 15 ounces, which usually you can find a 15-ounce container. Sometimes I'll get like the bigger one and it'll be about half of the container, and I'll use half for this and half for a skillet lasagna, which I don't remember if we've made in this class before. We have, yes. We do a lot of savory recipes also. So let's see. Alexa, how much time is left?
You have 1 minute and 10 seconds left on your period.
We're almost done. I'm gonna just scrape this down once more. If you really want it to get incorporated. So these, I'm gonna bring some to the library tomorrow. And I'm gonna bring some to, I had to get some work done on my car earlier this week. And I told them on Monday, I said, I'm gonna bring you cookies on Wednesday. So spread the joy and not have 7 dozen. Be careful if you try to soften butter in the microwave. Sometimes the microwave melts it on 10% power in less than 30 seconds. Yeah, if you're gonna do it in the microwave, I usually check on it every like 15 to 20 seconds. The way I actually usually soften my butter, I have an espresso machine right here. It's sideways, so I had room for my computer, but I put a cup upside down on top of it, and I stick my butter sticks there so that the cabinet light heats it up just a little bit. That's how I end up softening my butter usually. I feel like that's about good. Alexa, stop. And the other Alexa, sorry. Or you're welcome. All right, so we've got the butter and sugar are creamed. We're gonna add in 15 ounces of whole milk ricotta. Oh, that came out in one nice swoop. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I used to be like, not snobby about the vanilla that I got, but I used to get this like really fancy vanilla from like a spice store. And then I realized in certain things, it doesn't really make a huge difference. Like some recipes, I think it does, but the Wholesale Club has like, they have gourmet ones, they have like, and it's real vanilla extract. It's not, you know, the fake stuff. And if you buy it at the Wholesale Club, you get like a larger amount, should last through the holidays and then some. Just a tip if that's of interest to you. We're gonna add 2 large eggs. And what I like to do, and if you've been to one of my classes before, I'm not sorry for the repeat, but you'll have heard this. I always like to crack my eggs in a separate container first, because if you've ever had a rotten egg, and I hope you've not, because it's the grossest thing ever, if you were to crack it right into your batter, you would have to toss all the stuff that you already worked on. So, and the other thing is I like to tap it on a flat surface. So like on your countertop or a cutting board, instead of on the edge of the bowl, because the shells tend to go in there a little more. I just tap it on the side there and I crack it in. I don't usually like anything that requires extra dishes, but this is one instance where I do it. So there's 1 and 2. And this is a really fun recipe for kids to help with too, if you have kids at home. My son loves these cookies and loves helping to make them. So we've got the vanilla, we've got 2 eggs, and we're gonna beat it on medium speed until it's combined. So I usually start at low until the eggs kind of break up and then turn it up a little bit. And we're gonna scrape it again, which is the name of the steps in this recipe is just like beat it and scrape it. And that's just to make sure, like sometimes you'll have butter or something up at the top, and if it won't incorporate properly if you don't give it a little extra attention. Okay. So we're gonna now add in 4 cups of all-purpose flour. And when you're measuring flour for baking, specifically for baking, the way that I like to do it is to scoop it into the measuring cup and flatten it off instead of diving the measuring cup into the container and compressing it against the side of the, like I used to do, I'd scoop it in and then I'd press it, but you're actually compressing a lot more flour than you need if you do that, which can affect the texture of your cookies. So if you have a scoop or a spoon, just kind of pour it in there and overflow it a little bit and then scoop it flat or scrape it flat. You can use a knife, you could use your finger, whatever works. And we're gonna do 4 cups, and I'm not gonna lose count here. I used to, when I first started baking with my son when he was little, I'd get so distracted with him running around that I'd be like, did I put in 3 cups of flour? Or that was 2, that wasn't 3. But so scooping, sweeping, that's 3. I do this for pancakes too. And speaking of pancakes, Tuesday, if you have kids and teens, I have a Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern with the Greenberg Library doing a class. We're making gingerbread pancakes with peppermint whipped cream. They are delicious, really decadent. We're doing it at breakfast for dinner because why not? It's the holidays and make something a little fun. So if you want to join that, it's on my events schedule on my website. I'll link that in a moment. So we've got 4 cups of flour. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And something, I've actually ruined this recipe once before, and I'm not trying to scare you, but baking powder, some brands have aluminum in it, and in small amounts, it's not necessarily noticeable. But if it can leave like a sour metallic taste on your tongue, and especially like this uses 2 whole tablespoons, can be really bad. So if you, the next time you go to buy baking powder, look for one that's marked aluminum free. I know Rumford is one brand that makes it aluminum free, and I think Bob's Red Mill also makes aluminum free. It's a weird thing, but definitely worth avoiding if you're able to. And we're gonna do 1 teaspoon of, I wrote fine grain salt, so I just mean not like kosher salt, not the really chunky grains. If the chunky grains are all you have, like a kosher salt, then you can use, you might need to use a little bit more. I don't think it would make a huge difference in this recipe, but this like table salt, like the really fine powder, like the crystals kind of look like white sugar. And that's what my high school or middle school home ec teacher always said, measure salt over the sink or a different bowl other than what you're baking in or cooking in, because if you overflow it, then whatever you're making ends up too salty. So that stuck with me. How are we doing over there? I know Ellen's cooking along. We're doing good? Awesome. All right, so we've got flour, baking powder, and salt. We're gonna put it again on low, just until it forms a dough, and then I'll usually go in there with the spatula. You might get a little bit of a dust storm. That actually looks kind of cool overhead. It's like a fog machine. Then I'll go in and scrape it a little with the spatula. That's all there is to this cookie dough. Super easy, very easy to scale. I think I made a half batch of this once and it worked out fine. I just figure whenever I go to make this recipe, I might as well make the big batch and give them away. And if you're ever like trying to figure out places to offload some cookies, maybe you don't have neighbors that would enjoy them, or when my husband used to work in an office, I would send them in with him. But you know, the local police station, hospital,
Library.
Yeah, library for sure. I've heard the librarians enjoy baked goods.
Oh yeah. There's a question, looks like from Jessica. Yeah.
If I have aluminum in my baking powder, should I use less? No, you don't want to use less because they won't rise properly. I will say, do you happen to have cream of tartar on your baking shelf? It's like a powder, I mean, in your like spice cabinet? Because if so, you're not cooking along today though, right? I think you do. Okay, so there is a how to make baking powder. So you can use, I'm gonna send you a link in the chat. You can use baking soda and cream of tartar to make baking powder. I would recommend, if you're making this, not today and you're not already halfway in, I would recommend doing that instead of using the one with aluminum in, just because if you were just making like pancakes or something where there wasn't a ton of it in there, it wouldn't be noticeable. But I actually like full on made this for a cookie swap once and I had to restart. It was very disheartening, but now I know. All right, that's all there is to the baking, to the cookie dough. We're gonna scoop onto baking sheets, and I'm gonna move my stand mixer so you guys can see. Oh, this thing, I don't use it a ton, but this time of year, it gets a little bit of extra love. So on your lined, either with silicone baking mat or parchment, just gonna scoop. You can either do like a small scoopful, you can use like a regular spoon and just kind of try to make them all about the same size. If you have a cookie scoop, you go in here and you do what I told you not to do on the flour. You scoop it in and you push it against the edge of the bowl, so you kind of flatten it off. And then you get, what's nice about a scoop, they're inexpensive, but it's nice because you get perfectly evenly sized cookie dough balls or whatever you're making. So you just want to leave a little space. They'll spread a little bit, but not too much. And the ricotta makes them a little bit tangy. I have a lemon version of this, lemon ricotta cookies also on my website. And I have, I don't know if I ever published it, but I did one with like peppermint. You can just kind of play around with the type of extract in there if you want. The peppermint ones I did like crushed candy canes on top. But those, they look great the day you do them, but as they sit, they kind of get a little like weepy. So if you were going to do something like that, I would say wait to decorate until like right before you're going to serve them. So I've got 12 on this sheet. I'm going to put this one in now just so that I can try to have it cool somewhat quickly. It's going to bake for about 13 to 16 minutes. They're going to be soft. You want them to be lightly golden. So I'm going to do 13. Then I'll get my other sheet going. I usually put in 2 trays at a time. If your oven tends to cook unevenly, and you would know that because if you put a tray of cookies or whatever in the oven and you take them out and in one area they're a lot darker than others. If you've noticed that in the past, what you might want to do is cut the cooking time in half, and then when that time is up, take them out of the oven. So I would take the bottom rack, the bottom cookie sheet out, spin it front to back, and then top to bottom. So if it was on the bottom this way, I'd move it to the top, but I'd spin it this way. So you're just kind of rotating and helping it cook a little more evenly. And if you feel free to ask if you guys have any other questions. I'm just going to keep giving you like random tips while I'm doing this because it's not complicated. But if you wanted to freeze this dough, they do freeze fine baked. You can do that. If you wanted to freeze the dough, I would put them on something similar to this or a plate that's lined. Once they're in balls, put them in the freezer, let them freeze solid, and then you can take them off of the plate or the tray or whatever you have and put them in an airtight container in your freezer. The next class I have with this particular program with my, not to show favorites, I love all the libraries, but I do live in Ossining. So like if we were picking favorites, like I have one child, like I don't have to pick a favorite. The Ossining Library is going to be on Tuesday. We always do these on Tuesdays. So it's going to be on Tuesday, January 17th. We're going to do it again at 6 p.m. Eastern. And we try to have like a theme, whether we post the theme publicly or it's just something that me and Diana kind of want to do as a theme. So we were thinking like kind of soups and salad. Is it soup and salad next time? No.
That's
Wait.
the pasta.
The pasta, seafood. Okay, so we're going to do, I had the wrong one written down. We're going to do a shrimp pasta with a lemon caper butter and some garlic bread and I think roasted green beans. It's the seafood pasta is super easy. I usually make it with the green beans. With the garlic bread. I'm adding in green beans because I'm like, well, we have an hour, so we'll do something extra that's get a little vegetables in there. That'll be a good one. February the 21st, also a Tuesday, 6 p.m. We're gonna do soup and salad, and it's American Heart Month, so we're gonna do like kind of heart healthy recipes. So it's a curried pumpkin soup and a kale salad that's got some pine nuts and pepitas and cranberries, and massage the kale and make it not like tough and gross. That's the way to do it. You actually, excuse me, for this one, we massage it with avocado. So you get kind of like a nice hand treatment while you're doing it. It's messy, like we're gonna get our hands dirty, but it's fine. And actually that class, if you come to that, it'll call for nutritional yeast. And I'm working on the program materials for these next couple ones. You can register. Diana's got the link for that. But I always put in the PDF for the class, I put notes if there's an ingredient that might be tricky to find or if you can substitute something. So that kale salad calls for nutritional yeast. It looks like this. Sometimes it's in a canister. It's a good, if you happen to be vegan, it's a good substitute for like the flavor of Parmesan. So it's just this like kind of like flaky. We put it on popcorn sometimes actually. So it's these little flakes. I mean, not to make it sound like something unappetizing. It kind of looks like fish food, like those little flakes. It's, yeah, right. Isn't it, Jessica? It's so good on popcorn. It's got like a nutty flavor. I wouldn't replace it 1-for-1 with Parmesan in something, but you can do just like a little bit of it is really nice. My husband puts a lot of it on his popcorn. So that class, and then in March, also the 21st for March, we're doing it's National Peanut Month. So we're gonna do some noodles with peanut sauce and roast pork. We're gonna use pork tenderloin for it. And then like this honeyed orange thing that goes on the side. It's really good. If you have cooling racks, this will be helpful for your cookies. They usually look something like this. Sometimes they're sold with the baking sheets. So my recommendation, I'm a bit of a hippie. I like to try to not use paper towels except for like if I absolutely have to. But the decorating of this makes a bit of a mess on your counter. It's a little annoying to clean. So what I like to do for this recipe is take paper towel and put it underneath the cooling rack, because you'll get like almost like a Jackson Pollock on your counter of like icing and sprinkles, and you might find sprinkles like hanging around for a while after today, because they roll. The type that I like to use, you can use any sprinkles you want. Just I personally think that the nonpareil, is that how you say it? Nonpareil, the little tiny ball shaped ones versus like sanding sugar or these like long sprinkles like that you would get like on a donut. I think that they're fine, but the color will bleed usually in the icing like as they sit for a few days, because you can store these covered once they're fully cooled and set. You can store them at room temperature, but the color in those colored sprinkles, if they're the bigger ones, tends to kind of like weep into the icing, and they get a little bit, the sprinkles get a little soggy in my opinion. The little ball shaped ones work really well. And I was at the store today, I was like, I don't know if I have enough. The only one that I could find at the store was a bag. I don't know how a bag of sprinkles makes sense personally. I was not on the marketing team for Wilton in this particular product, but it seems like it's a mess waiting to happen. So I'm thinking these I'd have to like put into a bowl so they don't just go flying everywhere. But I've done these for Easter before. You could do them like themed with different colors, depending on, you know, whatever you were celebrating. They don't have to be for Christmas, although that's when traditionally around when I make them. So let's see. Those have 6 minutes still. I have this other nifty thing, and then we'll make the icing so that it's ready. I got this at Party City. It's a multi-level cooling rack, and it's been like such a huge help for me, especially with the small kitchen. You like open it and it hooks on, and then instead of taking up like normally when I make these cookies, my entire counter is just cooling racks. It just takes up a little bit of space. So I'm gonna set this. I've used all these things. I'm gonna still use the vanilla. Gonna get a bowl for the glaze. Right? I had it on my list for a long time, like my wish list, and I never bought it. I'm like, nah, it's fine. And then I saw it and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and buy it. They have ones on Amazon that are like 5 racks, but it's nice because I did it. My son had a birthday a couple weeks ago, and I was able to do like 60 cupcakes, and they all cooled on here. It was really nice. So we'll make the glaze. Again, if you're able to wait until your cookies are fully cooled, it'll be better for your glaze, but we're gonna make it. We'll experiment a little bit. The glaze is very easy. It's 2 cups of powdered sugar and about 4 tablespoons of milk. If it feels too thick, you can add a little more milk. Too thin, you add a little more powdered sugar. So it's not an exact science, but close-ish. And then there's a couple different ways when you go to glaze them. I usually take the cookies and I invert them into the bowl and just kind of let it hang off and drizzle and then put it back like this, or you can use a spoon to kind of pour it over. And this, again, since it doesn't have to be exact, I'm scooping it how I said not to do it on the flour, and I'm smushing it on the edge there. Do any of you have any like cookies that you tend to make this time of year? I always like seeing other people's family traditions. Until somebody either unmutes or chimes in, I'll say my other favorite, the ones my grandma used to make, the like roll out sugar cookies with the cookie cutters. And I'm actually working on revamping that post on my website. I have it there. It's just a little old and I have better photos and stuff now, but they're just so good and they're soft and they hold their shape well. So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hi, I make nut cups. They're like little mini pecan pies with a cream cheese dough. It's a really great recipe from my aunt. And I also make icebox cookies, which are super fine, thin butter cookies that you freeze the dough and then slice it really thin.
Oh, those sound awesome. And have you been making those a long time?
Yeah, those are my mother's recipes. So I was a kid. So that's the best.
Love that. I love to, I'm just in my refrigerator here getting the milk for a minute. I love that you have those traditions that help kind of, especially if you're either the person that you learned them from isn't around, or if they're don't live close, it's a nice way to kind of remember them. That's awesome.
Yeah.
My husband, his family is Italian, and I have a couple of like both from his mom and his dad's side recipes on my website of cookies that they make. One is, I think we have them called on there, Grandma Cardili's, I think it might just be called Easter cookies or Christmas cookies. And they're like very not sweet. They have orange zest and they're made with a lot of oil, but you roll them out and you kind of spin them into little flower shapes, but they're so nice with like tea or something. And I like because they're not super sweet. I'm just whisking the milk, into this powdered sugar. And then on his dad's side, there's tortilli and quinorilli. I'm not Italian, I'm not great at pronouncing them, but they're really kind of dense. Francine knows that, like don't know if you would call them, it's almost kind of like pie crust as a cookie. And then some of them, they make little tiny pieces and then they coat them in honey. And then some of them we do, we stuff them with a filling that's got like raisins and walnuts and honey. So it's 2 different types. Those are both really good also. I have, yeah, a lot of different ones. I had somebody ask me if I knew any recipes for pfeffernuss, sometimes also called pepper nuts. And it's like a gingerbread, but a fluffy one coated in either icing or powdered sugar. And I looked up some recipes. I'm going to try them this year. I've not made them before. Oh, thank you, Diana. I also have, there's a post too that I have that's handy this time of year. Find that. Cookies.
You make strufoli?
I don't, but I've had them. Those are, it's kind of similar, like the shape with the like sweet coating. Yeah. They're like, those just look like a birthday party to me. I love it. They have like the little like color, kind of like these sprinkles usually.
Yes, exactly. And almonds or dried fruit.
Yeah. I'm gonna check on these cookies. The cookie that somebody had asked me about, it has anise extract in it. So all right, so these, they're just like a little bit brown around the edges. I'm gonna let them sit for a moment on here. If they look shiny, they're probably not cooked through yet, and give them another couple moments. But I'm just gonna let these cool for a moment before I move them to my cooling rack. I put a link in the chat too for, I did a roundup a few years ago of cookies, holiday cookies from around the world, and I have them categorized so you can click to get not just my recipes, it's other people's also. So we've got traditional holiday cookie recipes, chocolate, cute and colorful, holiday cookie recipes from around the world, biscotti shortbread and slice and bake, thumbprint, and then holiday cookie recipes for special diets. So there's like different categories and you can kind of explore that. That was a fun one to put together. I had a bunch of food blogger friends kind of chime in and tell me what their favorites were. Some fun stuff on that list.
My grandma used to make some when I was a kid. She made molasses cookies
Yum.
and butterscotch cookies. Those were like slice and bake.
I don't think, have I ever had a butterscotch cookie like with butterscotch chips?
No, they're just butterscotch flavored dough.
Huh. Are there any
I've
tricks?
never seen them, I don't think, since I was a kid. So I'll have to look them up and see if I can find a recipe. I
Yeah,
don't
that
have their
sounds,
recipes.
that sounds really good. I'm just gonna transfer these to this cooling rack. So Jessica says, I've been working on gluten-free baking. I think I've figured out some secrets. Feel free to, I mean, if I don't know how secret they are, feel free to share if you'd like. I do know that there's a good, pretty good substitute for all-purpose flour that's like a cup for cup type of thing. I've heard a lot of my friends who either have celiac disease or can't eat gluten or don't prefer to eat gluten have had good luck with that. Are there any tricks for thumbprint as my recipe last year went flat? That's a good question. I haven't made a ton of thumbprint cookies, but let's see. There's a gluten-free chocolate thumbprint cookie on this list, on this roundup. Let's see. Gingerbread thumbprint. Let's see what they have to say. I'm wondering if it has to do with like chilling time. Go ahead.
If cookies go flat, doesn't that usually mean there's too much butter?
Maybe, I don't know. There's so much like kind of science to baking, and I enjoy baking, but I'm by no means an expert in that type of thing. I would, King Arthur brand has a cup for cup. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, I cannot eat flat. Interesting. I wonder, was your butter too soft if you were using butter? Or I know every once in a while with these, if I have like a bit where I didn't fully mix it together, like sometimes I'll get a little like kind of area that's not quite as like it kind of like lopsided or whatever. But yeah, that's a good, let's see. I'm reading this book about the 90s right now. And books, see, very on theme. And it was talking about how, you know, nobody has to be, because of the internet, nobody really has to be an expert at anything. People can kind of just like look up the answers to anything. And unless you lived through that transition, you don't really necessarily have an appreciation for it. So the top answer on Google is very adamant from Food Network that if your cookies repeatedly turn out flat, no matter the recipe, chances are your oven is too hot. Here's what's happening. The butter melts super quickly in a too hot oven before the other ingredients have firmed up into a cookie structure. Therefore, as the butter spreads, so does the whole liquidy cookie.
That could make sense.
Do you have that with other cookies too?
Well, my oven has been bad for the last 2 years and I just got a brand new oven. So
congratulations.
maybe this year they'll work.
Okay.
Because I'd have to put it higher to try to get it to 350 and then it would never stay there. So maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, that might be. That very well might be.
Because like they were so flat, you couldn't even eat them.
Oh, that's sad.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like usually you can eat any cookie, but this was really bad.
You just break it up and put it on top of like, you know, something. So yeah, Jessica asked, she's scooping them now. Do I leave them tall or pat them down? Leave them. They're nice and so you get these nice little like, fluffy mounds.
They look delicious.
They're like little, I saw a lot of people describe them as almost like mini cakes. I'm gonna, what time is it? 6:46. I'm gonna scoop out one more tray of them before I ice them. I just don't want them to like be super sad, but I'll show you how to ice them. It's very easy. Do we add vanilla? We don't add vanilla to the decorating. Okay. My other cookie recipe that I'm thinking of, the rollout sugar cookies, I think there's vanilla in the icing also. It's another basic recipe. Usually with this will make almost enough. Sometimes I need to add a little bit more toward the end, depending on how much icing I put on them. And sometimes I'll use one of these little spoons to just kind of like drizzle on top and spread it around. I think when you dunk them upside down, it might use a little bit more, but either way, they're delicious. They don't need a ton of icing. Talked about our upcoming classes. Wait, I have another. So I told you I would put in the link for this gingerbread class. This is to register with if you want to join the gingerbread pancake class next week. It's a kids and teens class though, so please join if you have a kid or a teenager and not just, I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, but it's geared toward kids and teens. This link, so my website, bigflavorstinykitchen.com/events has all my upcoming events, and I just added a ton of stuff through March, I think. And I'll be updating the registration links for the next virtual potlucks later this week. And if you do make this recipe, if you take a picture, I'd love to see it. You can share it on social media. You can tag me at Big Flavors. And if you want to get fancy and add a hashtag Cook Big Flavors, you can do that. Or you can just email it to Diana or me. And if you've made this recipe, I put a link to the recipe, which you could also click on from the, from the class document that I sent. You can click on either the photo or the link there to my website. If you can leave a comment with a star rating, it really helps when people search online for recipes. It helps them find mine when people, you know, share it or interact with it in any way. We're gonna ice. This is gonna be the fastest I've ever iced one of these. Letting it hit my window fan. We're gonna do it, guys. So I've got the sugar, powdered sugar, and milk. Put this to the side. So you can either dunk it round side, so take the flat side on the bottom, turn it upside down so that the rounded side goes, I'm starting over. Let me reverse. The rounded side up, but we're going to turn it upside down so the rounded side top goes into the icing and just kind of like lift it up and let the extra icing drizzle off a little bit so it's not too much. And then you can put it right onto there. And you'll see, especially if it's still warm, it'll start dripping down a little bit and making a fun pattern on your counter or paper towels. So you can do them like that. You could use a little spoon or a big spoon and just kind of like put a little on top and spread like that. And it'll kind of continue to droop down a little bit. I usually will ice like, maybe 4 to 6 of them at a time. And then I'll put the sprinkles on because you want to put them on while it's still wet so that they stick. So if you go and ice all of them and then you go to do your sprinkles, they won't they won't stick, they'll just bounce off. So that's what the final cookie looks like. And I'll show you the texture. And because I'm going to take one for the team, I'm going to go ahead and bite it just so you can see it. But the inside is like nice and fluffy and delicious. And it's like very like vanilla. It's just really good. You can also color the icing if you want. You can put a little food coloring in it. I'll not shove a whole cookie in my mouth right now, but I almost did. But that's all there is to it. So you can see like on this one that I drizzled like with the spoon, it's got kind of like ridges of icing coming down. So that's the only difference, but really it's not a big deal. I've never had anybody complain about too drizzly icing on a cookie they're eating. Yes, Sally's Baking Addiction. Thank you for sharing that link. They have her blog has great tips for baking. If you ever want like an answer on something and you really want to be sure that it's well researched, she's done her homework big time. So that's a good one. So I'll just do batches like this. I'll just do a couple more during the class and then I'm going to do the rest of them after dinner. But for storing, again, if you're going to freeze them just like this, uniced, super easy. And then you can thaw them out and decorate them when they're thawed. If you're going to store them on the counter, wait till they fully cool off and you'll see like the icing will kind of harden on top from sitting in the air. That will, they'll keep fine in an airtight container. I don't know exactly how long they'll keep because they don't usually last too long, even though it makes a ton, but definitely several days or a week.
How do you get the sprinkles to stick after they've been frozen?
So you'll ice them after they thaw. You'll ice
after
them.
they thaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, just decorate them after they're thawed. And I like to, if I'm stacking cookies like in a big container, I'll do like a layer of cookies and then either a piece of parchment or wax paper and then do another layer so that they don't, I mean, they might not be as completely beautiful if you did them in one layer, but it's easy to store them. So yeah, thank you so much to everybody who joined. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Okay, I got it.
And like I said, our next virtual potluck is Tuesday, January 17th, and we're making the shrimp pasta, and it's one of my favorites. It's really good and it's very easy. And if you're gonna make that with us, and you're looking to save a little bit of time, a little bit of money, but it'll cost you a little bit of time. If you buy shrimp that are frozen, and thaw them and peel them yourself, it'll save any type of prep the store does on an ingredient, like you get charged more the more work that they do. So I tend to buy shrimp still frozen with the tails still on, but they're just split and deveined. Sometimes it costs a little bit less, but you're spending the time to do that. So if you're in a hurry, just go ahead and get them as is. How is it, Ellen?
Good.
Yeah.
It's very
They look
cakey. I
great.
guess it's also because it hasn't cooled enough.
Yeah, they are. They're kind of like little mini cake.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's
Awesome.
simple.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't compete with the other cookies on like the cookie tray, like for crazy powerful flavors. But if you you can do like a little lemon. You could even do lemon zest maybe on top if you wanted to do a little extra flavor. Yeah. Oh, and with shrimp, just one other note. Usually shrimp in a seafood counter has already been frozen and defrosted. So it's actually fresher to buy it frozen still. So just a note. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and happy holidays, happy end of the year, which I can't even believe I'm saying.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Ashley. Those look awesome.
Thank
I
you.
get to enjoy them tomorrow. I'm
You
so
will.
excited.
Unless you want
Thank
to do a drop by real quick.
Are there going to
That's
be any live cooking classes at the Ossining Public Library?
Not planned. I did those in the past. The problem, and for me, the hard part is it's not a real kitchen.
Yeah.
It's like a push cart, and it's fine, but you got to keep the stuff really simple, and it's a little trickier. What I like about these type of classes is like I'm in my kitchen, you're in your kitchen. So
Yeah.
when you go to do it again, you remember like, oh, this was over here and this was here. And then I just think it's a little more easy to repeat that way.
I think we, like you said, though, we do sort of more fancier. I don't know what the right word is, but fancier
Mhm.
stuff. You know what I mean? We can
Yeah,
get
well, and
more
like a
detail.
lot of times we do like a meal. So this
Yeah.
is like kind of a special instance because we're doing a dessert, but usually it's a meal. So, you know, whatever you cook, then you eat with your family, which is why we do them around dinner time on the East Coast, at least.
Mhm. Great. I'm going to stop the recording.